Hey everybody, what's going on? It's Adam Vanderhoef from GAWDA TV. Thanks so much for tuning into the first two episodes. We have an incredible show today for you all. Looking forward to diving right into it. A special thank you to all of you who filled out the form to give some feedback to all of us. As promised, we have a $100 gift card to be announcing right now. The winner of that gift card is Rachel Heisey. She's the Executive Marketing Coordinator at Callis Wire and Cable. So big kudos, Rachel. Congratulations on that $100 gift card. We'll make sure to get it over to you. Today's sponsor is brought to you by our friends over at Weldcoa. Marijuana continues to be legalized in states across the country, and there seems to be some momentum toward a full federal legalization in the near future. There are several gases used in cannabis production and extraction, and GAWDA members have found that this can be a lucrative market. Welcoming to GAWDA TV is Amy Morgan Bruecks. She is the managing partner at City Carbonic. Amy, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Adam. I'm excited to be here today.
You have been designing many CO2 systems for the last 75 years. How did this experience aid in selling to the indoor cultivation and extraction market for cannabis?
It was interesting because when we started in this market, a lot of the growers didn't even know bulk CO2 was an option. And so we immediately went into the market wanting to provide a bulk option for our customers. We really strive to make CO2 like it's a utility, just like water and power. And so we've been very successful in designing the equipment for each individual grow, utilizing bulk and cylinder gas so that they can achieve the results that they're looking for.
When you first began selling into markets related to cannabis, were there any stumbling blocks that you encountered initially? And how did you grow and evolve that side of the business to be a core part of your business today?
One of the biggest things that we soon figured out was that we needed a cash counter because it's a cash intense business. And so my first large cash transaction, I had to count all by hand, and I didn't feel comfortable doing it and right up front. And so we immediately bought a counting machine so that we could more reliably count the dollar bill or the bills that we were receiving. And so there has been some challenges with dealing with the cash that they have because that's how they pay their vendors most of the time.
According to your website, in addition to commercial growers, you can also service home growers. Can you discuss the difference in the sales process for you and any additional safety concerns that accompany a home grower using CO2?
So with home growers, it's much more sporadic, and because they're just doing it for their own application. So it's very similar to like home kegerator customers. They use it when it makes sense and they drink the beer and whatnot, but it's not their primary business. They don't much care about the safety component. Some people do, but for the most part, they don't care a whole lot about the safety component. And we do encourage them to and help them understand the ramifications of having CO2 in their homes and that it can be hazardous.
Amy, it's great to have you on the show. Thanks again for being part of GAWDA TV. Have a great day.
Thanks for having me, Adam.
Cavagna's new CGAR residual pressure valve eliminates the need to search for the right filling adapter. Our RPV is the fastest filling valve in the industry because we understand that time is money. At Cavagna, wherever gas is used, we are there.
Joining the show now is Stacy Lewis-Hayes. She is the CEO of Vern Lewis Welding Supply. Stacy, thanks for being part of the show.
Thank you for having me.
Cannabis was recently legalized in Arizona. You had indicated in the 2021 GAWDA forecast that this market will be a growth for you. Can you explain how you have had to augment your business to sell into the newly available market?
So in Arizona, medical marijuana has been legalized for quite some time, and we have serviced some medical marijuana grow houses already. And so what we're seeing is an expansion of that. They are upping their game, so we're having to up our game by providing more cylinders, more CO2, more regulators, anything that they would need to be able to promote the growth of marijuana so that they can get it out to the recreational users as well as the medical marijuana users. That in that market, that will increase some, but the market we think it's going to increase more for us in is the homeowners, because now homeowners can grow 6 to 12 plants depending on how many adults are in their household at home on their own legally. And so they're going to want to have their own little setup, and they're going to want to have their own CO2, and they're going to want to have their own rapid, healthy growth system. And because we service a lot of those homeowners already in the welding field, we think we'll get them also in the marijuana growing business.
For other members in states where cannabis was recently legalized or where it might be on the ballot in the coming years, what advice do you have as they prepare to enter the business?
As a company, you need to get on board as quick as you can, because if we're going to have it be legalized and they're going to be using our product and our services, then we need to be on the forward edge to make that happen. So I would be more informed of what the state is doing, what the ballot's looking like, what the flow of the decision would be, so that you're prepared in case it would happen, because you just hate for that business to go somewhere else. You might as well take advantage of it.
With Arizona having just legalized, have there been any regulatory changes or guidance that you have had to get up to speed on, and do you anticipate any?
So personally for us as a company, because we're a hazmat company, nothing changes in our company. Arizona is a right to work state. You can write your own policies. We won't change any of our policies personally as an organization. We will continue. But what we're finding is we're going to have a harder time finding qualified people to hire for our positions, because we're not allowing marijuana use to be an okay drug in our environment. And so it really limits our work pool, because I mean, there's a lot of legit people out there that are recreational users that do a phenomenal job, but we're limiting our market. So as far as regulations for us, that's how it's going to affect us. As far as regulations in the state, the majority of those regulations are on the grow houses, so they don't affect us at all. We are just supplying them whatever their regulations comply to.
Stacy, appreciate all the insight on this. Thanks again for being part of GAWDA TV.
That wasn't as hard as I thought it would be. Thank you.
We welcome now Tom Badstubner to the show. He is the GAWDA Medical Gas Consultant. Tom, thanks for being part of GAWDA TV.
Glad to be here.
The FDA to date has been relatively silent on cannabis oil extraction, even as that has become a big business for GAWDA members. Do you expect, as more states legalize cannabis, for them to weigh in on this soon?
Yeah, Adam, thanks. You know, there's a few overlapping issues to discuss regarding cannabis oil extraction. If the cannabis is being used as a drug, the manufacturing, extraction, and processing of the oil is regulated by the FDA under the drug current good manufacturing practices, which is in 21 CFR Part 211. Although the federal FDA has not generally recognized cannabis as a legitimate drug, if the cannabis product manufacturer is selling the oil as a drug, they should be using medical products where they exist in the oil extraction and so on. For example, they should be buying medical grade carbon dioxide for the oil extraction process if the oil is being used as a drug. The problem is that the FDA also gives the states the responsibility to license drug manufacturing and distribution. This is generally handled by the state's boards of pharmacy. So the federal FDA defines what is a drug and how you manufacture it, and the states define who's actually licensed to produce and distribute the drug. The federal and state regulations prohibit you from selling a prescription drug, carbon dioxide USP, for example, to someone who does not have a license or a prescription to use the drug. And very few cannabis oil extraction firms have the federal registration and the state license that would make them a legitimate drug purchaser. Bottom line, if the cannabis oil extraction company does not have a federal registration and the state drug manufacturing license, then you cannot sell them carbon dioxide USP. Eventually, the state and federal regulatory framework will be appropriate for cannabis oil extraction. But during this transition from an illegal drug to a legitimate drug, it's a little messy regulatory-wise.
The FDA has remarked on two portions of the process: the grade of gas to supply and tracking cylinders. Can you discuss those two bits of guidance and how they may impact GAWDA members?
Remember that we said before that unless your customer, the cannabis oil extraction company, is federally registered and state licensed as a drug manufacturer, you cannot sell them carbon dioxide USP, which is a prescription drug. However, the cannabis oil extraction company is still required to qualify the raw material under 21 CFR Part 211, Subpart E, which is called control of components. One way to show a good faith effort to qualify their raw materials is to buy food grade carbon dioxide if they cannot get medical grade carbon dioxide. Keep in mind that this substitution of food grade for medical grade is not endorsed by the FDA or any regulator. There are three advantages to the cannabis oil extraction company and to GAWDA members to use food grade carbon dioxide for this oil extraction application. First, it is legal for a GAWDA member to sell food grade products to a non-food grade manufacturer. The FDA simply does not regulate the distribution of food grade products in the same way that it regulates prescription drug distribution. Second, the food grade carbon dioxide is produced and distributed under a current good manufacturing practice or CGMP program. Food grade carbon dioxide is not covered by 21 CFR Part 211, which is for drugs, but rather it's covered by 21 CFR Part 117, which is for foods. This food section of the regulations includes good practices like supplier qualification, personnel training, record retention policies, hazard management, and so on. Lastly, the distribution of food gases requires a similar tracking of lot numbers in case a recall is ever needed. These three advantages make it a good idea to use food grade carbon dioxide rather than drug grade carbon dioxide for cannabis oil extraction. It's not a perfect solution and will certainly change as the states and federal regulators become more consistent. However, there is a potential problem with using food or beverage grade carbon dioxide for cannabis oil extraction. If the oil backs up into the carbon dioxide cylinder and that cylinder is later used in a beverage application, you may inherit serious liability problems. That's why we recommend that if you're serving the cannabis oil extraction market, you segregate the cylinders from your food and beverage cylinder population. You might use a label or special coloring to help with the segregation. Two last items. Your hazard assessment and risk preventive controls, or HARP-C program, should recognize this potential food hazard and document how you're managing it. You should also have a way to completely clean the oil out of the cylinder if it ever gets into the cylinder.
Tom, thanks for all the knowledge into this. We appreciate you being on the show. We'll talk soon.
Well, thanks, Adam. It's been a pleasure being here. Take care.
Welcoming back to our show is Rick Schweitzer. He is General Counsel and Government Affairs here at GAWDA. Rick, as always, great to see you. How are you?
Sure, glad to be here.
Rick, as more states have legalized or decriminalized drugs, including marijuana, what has that meant for GAWDA members with regard to their internal employees?
Well, as an employer, I think it normalizes the use of marijuana. Not just on an irregular basis, but now on a regular basis, and perhaps even in a work environment. So I think it's even more critical for employers to understand and to have policies that address the use of marijuana in the workplace, so that you'd have a no impairment policy, no use policy, no possession policy in your workplace.
You wrote an article, Marijuana, CBD Oil, and Your Company Drivers. Can you discuss the thought process behind that article?
Yeah, CBD oil is sort of the hot new thing. And you go to any convenience store or truck stop, and you're going to see probably a number of products that contain CBD or CBD oil in it. It is essentially a derivative from hemp, which, as of the Agricultural Act of 2018, is no longer considered a controlled substance. Now, marijuana is a Schedule I controlled substance. THC is the hallucinogenic portion of marijuana. If you have less than a concentration of 0.3% of THC in CBD oil, then it is not considered marijuana. But if you are a CDL driver, you are still subject to drug testing, and this has not changed. And the drug tests that are conducted under the Department of Transportation protocol test for marijuana. CBD is not a regulated substance. So the problem is, if you're buying something at a convenience store for anxiety or depression or pain in your knee, you don't know what the concentration is in that product, whether it's a gummy bear or a cookie or some sort of oil that you rub through the skin. The FDA doesn't regulate it. No state regulates it. And the FDA does have restrictions on putting CBD oil into food, or saying that it is a medicinal product, but it's still out there. And it is possible that a driver who's using CBD oil, even if it's legal, can have a positive drug test for marijuana, because you could have a test that's going to show that you took something that had more than the 0.3% THC in it. So it's, in my mind, it's dangerous for a driver to use CBD products if you're subject to drug testing. And there have been a number of cases where drivers have lost their jobs because they took CBD oil, and there have been a number of lawsuits against the manufacturers of these products as a result of that.
Is it still legal for a company to enforce a zero tolerance drug policy?
For truck drivers, it's absolutely legal. Anybody who has a CDL, there are federal prohibitions against using marijuana or other, I think there's 6 other drugs that are tested for in their testing protocol. For non-truck driver positions, fillers, office staff, salespeople, it depends on the state that you are in to a certain extent, and the type of policy that you have and the type of testing that you have. Some states, a handful of states, prohibit testing for drugs unless you have reasonable suspicion or as a pre-employment test. Most states do not. Most states allow you to have a zero tolerance policy and to test employees for drugs. So you need to check the laws of your state before you impose any kind of company policy. But for drivers, it's very clear. Drivers cannot use marijuana or any other drugs. And you are required to test for them.
Thanks, Rick. Great to see you again. We'll talk soon.
For those who don't know, Kramer Decker is now ProRack gas control products.
Kramer Decker is now rebranded ProRack Gas Products. ProRack's tradition of quality, reliability, and innovation has resulted in the largest selection of gas management products and numbers of units in use worldwide. Engineered perfection.
And this will bring us to the final part of GAWDA TV Episode 3. Thank you again to all of our advertisers and the special guests who join our show. If you'd like to be part of the show, click in the description below. We'd love to have you on. So next episode is going to be launching on March 15th. You do not want to miss it, trust me. It's going to be focusing on the 2021 GAWDA Professional Compliance Webinar. We're going to be having consultants like Tom Badstubner, Marilyn Dempsey, Mike Dodd, Rick Schweitzer is coming back on the show. So make sure to put this on your calendar and come back and watch this episode because, again, there's going to be things in this episode that you need to know. Thanks again for watching GAWDA TV. I'm Adam Vanderhoof.